I don't know why not either. What you getting into over here? You don't need no more nails. Well, break the rest of them. They'll be even. It costs less than fixing those two. If you just cut the rest of them off, it'll cost less than fixing two. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's open in a word of prayer tonight, and then we will proceed. Father, tonight we are so grateful that we have this opportunity to meet, to gather, to at least insert a comma in the middle of a long week. And so, God, we just ask tonight that you would be with us tonight. And God, we're just so thankful again that you have called us to be who we are as a church. And God, help us to always be a church that pursues your calling on our lives. And we ask it in your name. Amen. Well, I had several people this week ask me if I would share a little bit of a report from Pennsylvania. So I thought I would do that. I would remind you what Acts tells us, because people always ask, well, there's work to be done right here. Why Pennsylvania? And so one of the things that I am grateful of is last year when we were in Pennsylvania for our mission trip, we visited a food pantry that was in a terrible rundown condition. And I thought, well, you know what? If this place can do a food pantry, then the annex will host a food pantry. And so that back then really gave me the push to go home and let's create ours. And that food pantry here that got the push to do it from Pennsylvania has really propelled our church in a big way around here, where a lot of people are getting help through that ministry. A lot of people are asking how can they help with that ministry. And all of that started in Pennsylvania. More than that, throughout the New Testament, Jesus talks about, and all the writers talk about, go. And while you're going, so he has to sometimes get us out of our comfort zone, stretch us a little bit, get us in a place where we're not necessarily comfortable with doing ministry, to be able to begin to do that. And then once you do that there, what happens is you come back and you go, well, if I could do it there, I can do it here. So whatever we always do in a long phase away from home always teaches us what we can do when we come back here. And it reminds us of some challenges that we have. And of course, the Bible also tells us in Acts to be the witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, to Samaria, and to the ends of the world. And literally what that was areas very close, expanding all the way out throughout the world. And so we are really proud to be able to help in our community right here. We have the opportunity to have a partnership with several churches in Pennsylvania, which I'll share with you more about. We also are, as a church, very gracious in giving to the Lottie Moon offering and to the Annie Armstrong offering. One of those is for international missions. One of those is for stateside missions. And of course, we also get to host these two that, even Sandy, pray for him. He's going to be gone for 3 months to the Honduras here in a little while. I thought you told me today it was 3 months. Well, that could be. Oh, she was wishing he was going to be gone for 3 months. Uh-huh. So, but again, in your church, right, with everywhere else that any other our mission dollars goes to, it's the same as us being there and be a part of that. So you can know as a church and be excited about the fact that your church is not just a church that meets at Sundays on 11, but they're literally impacting the entire world, starting in Zebulon all the way to the Honduras. So that's a really, really cool thing. We got a call from the director of Pennsylvania Baptist and said, we have an area who is very underserved when it comes to leadership and churches. And we would like to talk to your association about partnering with us up there. And so we said, well, sure. And so people would ask, why Pennsylvania? Well, because they called and asked. I know sounds a little bit like the bat signal going up, and you see the back signal and you do that. But to me, if God called me to a church in Zebulon and it's a part of an association that was asked to help in Pennsylvania, that's God's providence through what he's doing. And so we are doing work in an area called South Central Pennsylvania. You might see it as South Central PA, also extends into the South Jersey area. So not far from Atlantic City, but more associated right in the Pennsylvania area. Anybody in here happen to be fans of the show Madam Secretary? Did anybody see that besides just me and my children? All right. In the show Madam Secretary, her husband taught at the War College. Well, the War College is an actual place, and it is in one of the areas near one of the churches that we help and to serve in the Pennsylvania area. So they called, they asked, we responded. Last year, what we did was meet with about 10 pastors, 10 to 12 pastors, who wanted to answer the call to really grow their church. A lot of these churches, we said this before, in the state of Georgia, there are thousands of Southern Baptist churches. Literally, you can drive around any corner and you're going to find a Southern Baptist church. In fact, I tell people around here, we don't need to plant any more churches. We got plenty of churches. We just need those churches that we have revitalized and growing and doing something. But you go there, in the whole state of Pennsylvania, there's about 250 of those churches. Now, there are other churches. By and large, a lot of those other churches aren't active and involved in their communities. They aren't doing anything. And so a lot of these pastors, what we're finding is there's a church here that's wanting to be active and go, but then you got to drive an hour and a half to find another church that's active and growing. Here, we can do it walking. We can find several churches. Well, it's one of the things that always impresses me about Zebulon is when you put something on Facebook, Pike County discussion page, asking for a church that does X, Y, and Z, there's 1,000 churches that respond, and a lot of them are all doing those things. And it's all right here, and yet we still have at least 67 to 70% of the community unchurched. It's massive. And then you start looking at a state of Pennsylvania where people did not grow up in the Bible Belt. They did not grow up with that foundation of it. Sunday at 11, you just go to church. And they're like, why should I go to church? Why do I need to do church? Why does any of this matter? In fact, the same way that a lot of times Southerners think of Northerners, Northerners happen to think about us Southerners. And so one of the things that's hard, it is the Southern Baptist Convention. Pennsylvania is not in the South. And so there are some drawbacks that we see that are happening, but either way, what we're finding is a lot of churches in those areas. And so we met with about 12 pastors that really wanted to see how we could possibly help. We as a team met with those guys last year over the course of a weekend and did a pretty extensive research and everything. We narrowed that down to what we think we can actually help with about 5 churches going into this year. A lot of things go into play with how you can help a church. A church, and this is not a biblical statement, but what do they say? You can't help somebody that won't help themselves. And so we can't actually go cruise into town, do everything for a week, cruise back out of town, and expect the other 51 weeks of the year that they're going to be able to handle it. They've got to have more than just the desire to do something. They have to have the wherewithal to start something and take steps. And a lot of people, we find this too in our own lives, don't we? We decide a lot of things that we want to do. But those first steps are always the hardest. And so that's what we found last year was a lot of people wanting to go forward, wanting their churches to be successful. But a lot of them, what we found is those first steps are really, really hard. Sandy and I got an opportunity a couple times this week to talk with some pastors and some individuals about what are you doing right now? If we were to come in to help, what are you doing right now? And a lot of them would sit there and look at us and say, I don't know. I don't know how to start. Now, I guess being the cynic that I am, my thoughts are, well, I can't come up here and do it for you. And I'm like, and so the cynic in me goes back and goes, man, look, these dudes are not sharp. I don't know if these guys can do it. And then I stopped and thought back, I have pastored churches and worked in some churches and did missions in some churches in some places that I thought I was all by myself too. And there was absolutely no staff, and there was absolutely nobody sitting in the congregation that would help. And I remember how there were times where I didn't want to be creative either. I didn't want to help. I didn't want to do anything. And I had all these ideas that I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to take a first step. For instance, one of the guys is literally a mile down the road from a $75,000 a year private law school. And his big dream is, I want to be able to reach those college students. Sandy and I are in the car with him touring the campus going, all right, well, who do you know over here? Who have you met? Nobody. Who have you talked to? Nobody. And I'm looking at Sandy and I'm going, the first thing I would do was go to the dean's office and see what I could do. And then we round the corner and there's a laundromat. College kids, if you're away from home that far, you ain't bringing your clothes home for mom and daddy to do it. And my first thought was, take a team from your church, go to the laundromat, set up on Saturday. He's got a church that's the size of one of these sections, no staff, no people willing to help. And I'm going, I get it. And so what I wanted to do tonight was kind of tell you some of the highlights of, go through them real quickly. I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about what's next for missions in Pennsylvania, and what are some training, or what are some challenges, and then what's the future look like. So highlights, I would definitely say that it was a ginormous success loading this 40-foot travel container that literally requires a semi-truck to haul it. I mean, I don't know that I ever really thought I could come back and say to 50-something churches, hey, let's fill this. Look, there was a couch, I think, that Miss Carlene Hershey donated. And Carlene's now influence is all the way up in Pennsylvania. And then a lot of other people sent couches and chairs and jackets and clothes and the whole 9 yards. And all of that influence, to me, if you donated to that, then literally when we are there doing missions, you are there doing missions. And so this thing was, I think we brought about, what would you say, Sandy, about 400, there was maybe 400 folding metal chairs on there. It was a bunch.
I saw two ladies with every chair you could possibly cram into their cars. Parked there, fixing to drive off, and they
Yeah. We had enough chairs that we were able to help, I think, 3 churches that did not have the resources to have chairs for their fellowship halls or whatever. They got loaded down. And then towards the end of that, we started noticing there was a Nigerian lady that ran some kind of home health care or something. She just kept coming back and looking at the chairs that we had left. She'd look at them and I said, ma'am, get all the chairs you want. Because we had enough to supply all those churches and still had probably 100 chairs sitting there that I'm thinking, what are we going to do with these this week? And she kept coming, and I'm like, so now we're helping people that we didn't know we would do. A vast amount of the clothes went directly to a homeless camp on the Susquehanna River. As cold as it was up there, still tents. Still, warming through a fire in a 50-gallon drum, still that whole 9 yards of what you would see. And it was just a massive, massive camp area where the homeless were just there. And thankfully, one of the guys that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, his name is Christian Aguilar. He's a pastor in the area. He's one of the guys we've been praying for a long time. He goes there weekly and is doing ministry there. Those are the types of guys that I want to support that guy because he's a go-getter. He's getting it, and he's getting after it. And so being able to help them, be able to see the faces and get pictures of homeless men, be able to have a jacket, to be able to have a nice pair of shoes, to be able to have some of the things that they need. That was a pretty awesome experience. Another highlight was getting a picture and a phone call from the migrant workers. And so the migrant workers up in that area, Pennsylvania is the second largest grower of apples for the entire country. And so they have some 2,500 migrant workers in peak season in that area. And so there are nearly 500 camps. And I don't mean camps by like tent camping, but like a barracks, like if your kids go off on a retreat somewhere and you got bunk beds and little beds, a camp situation. And most of these guys in their living space may have some lawn chairs, plastic that they sit on. And they do make decent money. They're things that they need as far as medicine and whatever then is pretty much taken care of. But they're sending all of their money back home. In fact, I think I may have told you guys this. One of the guys we met last year, I don't know, y'all might have met him. His daughter died while he was there working. And he did not get to go home because if he did, he doesn't work. And if he doesn't work, he doesn't get paid. And the rest of his kids now don't eat. And so he had to stay and work through that process. And so Christian Aguilar is a man that his ministry is reaching out to all 2,500 of them. I didn't know this as of last year, but as of this year, we now know that there are camps for women where women come over and work. There are some camps that families are there together. And they're all within 2 miles of the city of Gettysburg. So beautiful area, a lot of opportunities to minister there. Was part of really one of the highlights of the trip. In fact, got a call the very first night and said, y'all should have seen it. It was Christmas Day here. Now think about how your kids respond when you go all out for Christmas and they run in and they're just like, well, that's mine. They did that over used, donated clothes and furniture. He said, literally, these men are just running in there, tearing into these trash bags that have jackets and sweaters and socks and used shoes going, oh, that's my size. And now he's got something going, oh, I think this is your size. And they're just going through in several of these camps getting to see that. That is, to me, a major highlight. Because, like, one of the things that, Donna Edson, she texted me while we're there, and she said, is that picture the homeless camp, or is that picture the migrant worker camp? And I said, well, that's the homeless camp. And it just broke her heart to think in the weather that we were having here and we were having up there, people were homeless in the middle of that. They had no place to stay. And I know there are homeless people right in our own area, and we should definitely be doing what we can to help them. But I still go back to the fact there are not an adequate number of churches in that area to get the job done in that area. We have thousands. There's no reason that our community can't be reached here. We have thousands. They have few. And that's another one of the reasons. Of course, one of the highlights that I would point out to you is this: 8 inches of snow. I'm just going to be honest with you. I loved it. It did hamper some of our plans on Monday, but you don't get 8 inches of snow down here. And we got it up there, and I was so pumped and so excited because there was snow everywhere. Even my son was like, Dad, everything is so much prettier when it has snow on it. And I'm like, you're right. I don't know. It's pretty cold. I don't know how long I can handle this, but at least I got to see some real actual snow. And so that was a big highlight. But I think the biggest highlight for me, and I hope maybe this is a big highlight for y'all, is that we are in the position to help. Think about that. As a church and as a ministry, we are in the position to help. God has positioned us in a place where we have the resources, we have the people, we have the manpower, and we have the heart to work in that area and help. And not every church is in that position. I've been in churches years and years ago where we were the church hoping somebody would come help us. And so to be in that, like, I know a lot of times, it's in our mind. There were tough times in our church's history. There were lean times in our church's history. And there very well could be that again, but God has positioned us right now where it's not, and where we can use our resources to be able to help impact not just Georgia or Zebulon, but Pennsylvania, Honduras, all over the world. So that to me is the biggest highlight. One of the things that I think coming up next, and this is where I would like you guys to begin to get involved, because several of you have said, man, I want to go to Pennsylvania next year with you. So what we're looking at now is starting to narrow our focus to churches that we can actually help, and that we're not just throwing resource at something, but we can actually narrow it down to people that we know we can go there and we can help. For instance, the church I was telling you about that was in the college area. To me, in my brain, and I would ask Sandy and Joanne for their opinion too, the migrant worker deal, boy, that is a perfect ministry opportunity. These guys have it together. They have it going on. They have a plan. They have a direction. They need manpower and help. And so for me, working with Christian Aguilar, it's a no-brainer. But I think we can do more than just one. There's a town called Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Maybe sometime you could look that up. It is a small little town that reminds me a lot of Zebulon. Maybe not necessarily in the look, but if you look at the vast majority of Zebulon as families, mom, dad, kids, Selinsgrove has places to eat, a few places to shop, but the park is the center of town, and that's where families go together and play on the weekends, play ball on the weekends, do whatever. And there is one guy in that whole area trying to start a church that's doing something. One guy. And they will literally tell you there is a Catholic church in that area that does absolutely nothing. Not a thing. And so this guy, when I asked him last year, how can I help you? I was number one impressed that none of those guys said money. But he said, I need the bandwidth. He's like, I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I need manpower. It's me and my wife. And he said, and I have a brand new newborn baby, so the wife is handling that. I'm doing all the ministry. And he's like, here's my plan. I want to create a community of believers here that meet, say, at the pizza place, and it's for the people in this area. Then he wants to start another community maybe that's centered around hunters, or maybe another community centered around this, and then he wants to bring them all together for worship together. And he said, if you came, what I would love to do, if you guys were able to come, is I want to throw a block party. I want to do Vacation Bible School for a neighborhood. And then if you guys could come, man the grill, man the craft station, man the stuff that we all do right here, he says, then I have time to reach my community and talk to the people in my community. Because there's no need for us to roll up there and be like, ooh, look what we did. We reached your community for you. That's not going to help him when he goes back home, when we go back home. But if we can come up there and do a 2-day vacation Bible school that we do so easily here, man a grill, maybe even some folks that go, hey, I want to go help with some gardening over in the park and just spruce that up while we're here. Easy 2-day thing that doesn't require a whole lot of creativity on our part, that we can look at and go, this guy is capable of taking what we do and running with it for the rest of the year. Now, I think the guy that we talked about in the War College area, if he has a start, that's another area that we could possibly help with in the future. But some of the things that I'm looking at is this. The possibility of doing a program that's something like Adopt a Pastor. By that I mean, like, here, this church has been great. I mean, when my wife's around and there's no family around, they're trying to get people in the church, there's no staff to work with. Is there a way that some Sunday school groups or some ministry groups can adopt pastors and just send them like a thank you box, once every couple of months, to just go, hey, you're not alone up there. We're thinking about you. Here's a gift card or two to go out to dinner. We're thinking about your wife, send some soaps, whatever she's into. That's a great way to encourage these guys. The Lord really kind of kicked me in my rear end when I said, I don't think these guys are very sharp. And then it just like the Lord said, okay, maybe they're not, but neither are you, dude. You just got it easier than they do. And I'm like, you're right, Lord. And so if we can encourage pastors, maybe that's the kick, the kick forward to get them creative and get their juices flowing. Or, if we have some great ideas that work well here, send those to them instead of them having to go and reinvent the wheel. That's a great way to help. Adopting, say, some of the ladies' camps at the migrant things is a great way to be able to do that. Sending supplies, again, is still a great way to be able to help that. But actually sending people with the bandwidth and the vision to go and do that, that's a great thing. And then my hope is, what we find out is that we learn some thing or two up there, that we come back and go, oh, we could do more here. And I will say, I said this to the director of missions in Pennsylvania at dinner right before we come home. I said, look, we came here last year thinking, how can we help y'all? And I said, when I got here last year, I saw a failing food pantry that we worked with, and I said, I think we can do this food pantry. And since then, this year has been a great year for our church. And it's like, we learn that there by going there. What does it bless? And then it ends up blessing us here. My thing is, momentum is a wonderful thing. Once you start getting momentum, you don't want to turn around and go, no, hold on, stop that. But if we can continue the momentum that we can do in that area, that also continues the momentum for us. And just to be able to see that and to be able to help with that is the idea. Now, what we're looking at is, can we do this? And these are some thoughts for you guys to kind of keep in the forefront of your head and your mind. Are there some weekends where we could just say, hey, we can shoot up there, work 2 days, get back on a holiday weekend? Can we send a team that goes and does vacation Bible school in this area while maybe another team works with the migrant workers? Can I also make it a teenage trip where it's a mile from Gettysburg? Not only will they get to help people and experience a different culture, but they get to learn about national history right there in Gettysburg. Things that begin to push us with outside of our area. Another thing that I thought about, and ideas maybe that we have, is there are a lot of churches up there that don't have staff. They don't have the ability to help. We're blessed that we have Charles, Clint, we've got Pam, we've got all this staff that's able to do and to help, and one person that's had to do it all. And they don't have that. And a church of 10, 15 people that's trying to reach their community may not have that to start with. Is there a way where we can offer here at First Baptist Zebulon an internship for a summer for an older high school kid who might come in the summer after his junior year and serve at our church for 2 months? He gets to learn from me. He gets to learn from Pam, Charles, Clint, he or she be involved in different ministries, in the pre-planning of different ministries. And then, what if then the summer after he or she graduates, they want further experience? Well, we already have a relationship with a church in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Now this kid can go to Pennsylvania and serve for the summer and become that staff person for his on his resume already. And he's worked at home, plus he's been stretched out of his comfort zone to go do it there. And before he goes into any other kind of ministry somewhere else that would then stretch up into that other part of the world. And so I think there are a lot of ways that we can begin right here at home helping these people, but also helping build for a future helping. Imagine, I would kind of leave with these two things. Imagine helping in an area like Selinsgrove where they're trying to get a church up and running. Now, what is it about missions that is helping our church so much? I think it's the fact that it's not just asking people to come in this building at 11 a.m. And so the idea and the goal isn't necessarily to just get a church off the ground where they're meeting at 11 a.m., but get them to where they're actually doing community ministries and community ideas and their impact in their communities. That's what we want to help them do. And so that's what's going to give them that momentum. So we want to be able to help them. But nonetheless, imagine if you have a child who's going into the 9th grade. And we could set up a partnership where a week a year, they go and are part of a mission team. And they can see a church from nothing to going and growing and reaching people, and they can graduate high school and be able to say, I had a hand in seeing this church go from nothing to something established and going somewhere. We lose a vast majority of our teenagers when they graduate high school. Not just our church, every church does. It becomes this mind just warped place where they're looking for their place. But if they've seen our church grow in 4 years and been a part of helping another church in another place grow for 4 years, what does that do for them when they walk on a college campus and they go, I want to be involved in a ministry still, because that's what I've known for the last 4 years and it changed my life. So it benefits them, Pennsylvania, obviously, but imagine how it benefits your kids or your grandkids sitting right here to be able to be a part of that and to be able to help in that. So that's sort of the vision for it. I would share with you 2 updates. I told you about the migrant workers having like Christmas Day, being able to get supplies. As we were on our way back, we got a call from the pastor at Carlisle Baptist Church. Funny story, we went there to help them, and the pastor had the idea to start a young mother's ministry. Diapers, diaper bags, clothes. Here's the issue. He didn't tell anybody in his church he wanted to start that. And so here we come from Georgia, and we have hundreds and hundreds of diapers. And we've got diaper bags. And we get there in the church, we knew it was going to be smaller than ours. And we're out of space in a lot of ways here. They had very little space. And here comes all this stuff into a room. Pastor didn't tell nobody. And so we get there once we're there, and we're like, we're going to go by. He asked if we could come by and help get them organized and started. Well, Miss Joanne's in there, Stephanie Summers, Audrey that's with us, they're in there organize it. And this older lady comes in, is like, what are y'all doing? And it got a little testy. And I thought Miss Joanne was going to have to body slam somebody. It got a little testy for a minute. In fact, you know, men, y'all know when women say, just stay out of here and stay out of my way. Like, don't question it, just turn around and walk away. Don't go in that area. And that's kind of what they did to me and Frank. And Hayden was like, no, don't come in here. And this lady, she was just worried because her daughter kind of was the one wanting to start this ministry and wondering if we were going to be in her way, or we going to step on anybody's toes, or we're going to do all this. And so it was a little testy for a minute. Then the daughter got there and was just like super excited. She said, y'all don't realize you just started a ministry. Like, we didn't go help it. We didn't go boost it. We started a ministry. And so as much as we're starting ministries right here, you as a church primarily started a ministry at Carlisle Baptist Church in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, right down home. And he said, look, I know it was a little testy to begin with. He said, but I had two families come in today and started that ministry. These two families came in. They got the supplies that they needed for their children, which Carlisle, just a little quick note, Carlisle has a very affluent part of it. And then there are a lot of factories there that is a very poor part of it. And it's a lot of young couples that are moving here from other countries to work in those factories. and they were able to get some diaper bags, some baby gear. So excited. They got to share the gospel with them, and one of the young moms accepted Jesus. All from a ministry that people don't get to see down here in Georgia, started it in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And before we even left the state, it already was doing its job. And so now they're set with a ministry that is sustainable, and they have that push. And you know how that is. Sometimes when you want to start something, you just need a little help, and you just need a little push, and you just need to take that step. And so for us, we were able to help them take that step to work in that direction. So I see a big way, and I think Sandy or Joanne, you guys have probably taught with your Sunday school class a little more. Y'all, the migrant worker, and they're genuine, they're incredible. These guys are just on it. And like, you don't understand from the things that I see. Like, when we were there, I wanted Sandy and Joanne to be able to meet them because, number one, y'all speak the language. And so they just go to talking, yapping, and talking with the migrant workers in Spanish. And I don't know what they're saying. They may very well be talking ugly about me. Knowing Sandy, he may have. But I don't know what they were saying. But the point is, I want them to get to see it. The snow messed up the Tuesday that we were going to get to go that area. And so it put a pause on that. I was hoping they would get to do it. Well, Sandy, we know he can be a little driven. Wednesday? It was Wednesday at like 3 o'clock. I'll be there at 4:30. And you think, well, what's the big deal about that? People don't just normally drop and go, hey, I'll run an hour to get y'all. I'm going to take you up here. Whatever I had planned for tonight, don't matter. We're going to get y'all. We're going to tour everything, show you around. And they got to go and see where he does ministry and several of those camps and several of those opportunities. It's got to see it. That's impressive to me when somebody is desiring the help and they're willing to drop everything and go, because that might be a partnership. That tells you a little bit about what they want to do. And so was really impressed with that. The kid, I call him a kid. He's 20-something, and he's starting a church in Selinsgrove. He's from South Carolina. I know kind of where he's at. And imagine being able to go and serve in a mission field where you can go alongside your kid. And so the kid can see mom and dad doing missions. Mom and dad get to see the kid go on missions. How many times do we send our teenagers on a mission trip or camp? Missions together. That's a really, there's a place to serve in missions there. And again, our goal biblically is to go and do it, and this is our opportunity. So let me take a minute. If you guys have any questions for me, shoot them. If you got any questions for Sandy and Joanne, shoot them. They saw a lot of what I saw as well.
Can I say two things?
Yes, sir, of course you do.
One, they don't know anything about illegal immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
They are all documented. They come here every year to work on the same farms. The farm owners have picked up pretty nice places for them to live
Mm-hmm.
because they trust them. They trust them with their equipment, and they trust them with that building that they live in. They take care of those things. They have, of course, they can't afford to buy all the extras. And so, one thing that they need, and this is item 2 I want to mention, they need Bibles. When we met with them, the first thing I asked them was, how many of them have a Catholic background? All of them raised their hand. And I said, how many of you have Bibles? And I think there was 4 out of 17.
Mm-hmm.
Time of year, because they're at home. The few that were left there wanted to do essential things that have to be done this time of year. The rest of them, 9 months there and 3 months at home. So they'll be back to the same place,
Mm-hmm.
same thing again this year.
Yeah.
This particular group was all from Northern Jersey.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe.
They come from Haiti, they come from Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, and so that was some of the list that
Yeah. And I think we actually sent 2 cases of Bibles this time, which maybe 150, maybe 200. Anything that you have the ability to come across gospel related that's in Spanish, they can use.
I met the 2 camps that they took us to, and I have to say, I was really impressed with Christians. We were not in a four-wheel drive vehicle, and I said, we're gonna put you down to praying for you a four-wheel drive vehicle. But we were in a small car, in the ice, in the snow driving, pulling a trailer. And that's what he pulled, had supplies, and he would stop and give supplies out of the trailer to the areas. But when we went to, of course, the group of the men, especially, they're from Honduras, so when they found out who we were and where we were, the ministry, they were just like, oh, we've got somebody that understands us and our country, you know, basically. And it was just, I can't even tell you how it meant a lot to me, because we love the people. And they were so kind and so careful, and just being so loving and friendship. And
Yeah.
anyway, then we went to a home that they had, I believe, 7 girls, but only 5 came out. They were from Mexico. And he may not have pronounced her word right. Christian's wife said that it's so flat that the girls, one of them really had a hard time because it was just too flat. And you're talking about people that are used to having family. And you know, being a woman or girl, it's a little bit different than the guys. So she was able to get a DVD player for them and DVDs, even though they were in English, but they said at least they have noise and they can, it helps them to learn. So I have some ideas of what I want to do, either in my Sunday school class, to reach out to these girls to help them.
Yeah.
And to maybe, I've already committed to getting some of the good Christian DVDs to send to her.
Yeah, it's no small thing to realize these guys are and ladies are working hard. Like, you're not just going out there working 4 hours, piddling on your phone for a little bit, and work another 4 hours. These guys and ladies are busting for the whole deal. And it's always impressive for me to go to the guys' camp, because I know if I'm going to work a good, hard, long day, I don't want somebody showing up with a bunch of visitors and a guitar making me sing, man. I want to sit down and chill. And these guys are just so excited to have somebody to sing with and cook something, because they don't all group. Imagine 7 women living together and they don't get to see nobody else. You know they're going to get catty with one another to a large extent. But they're so, yes, we can send things there, but that group, by and large, wants to be able to see people. And people there to fellowship with, somebody there just to hug them, somebody there to throw a football, kick a soccer ball with them, eat a hamburger with them. They just need relationship, and they are open to the gospel. In no way has Christian been able to reach all 2,500 of them. He's got some camps that he's made better inroads with than others. He's got, obviously, when you're bringing in 10 guys to come work your field, you don't want some pastor showing up at like 1, messing with their workflow. But he's built a good enough relationship with them that a couple of these particular camps, it's like you don't even have to call. You just come when in the afternoons. You don't need permission. You're welcome here anytime, as well as a pastor, to go and help them.
When I was in Curtis, one of the girls asked us to share our testimony, wanted to hear from us. And I thought that was very
Yeah. And I've heard that a lot from Christian. He loves getting the supplies to be able to bring. So a lot of ways that before we can go here this week maybe, but I'm praying for you. Want you to know there's more than just that team that's there. So there are a lot of ways to be creative with this. Other questions or thoughts? Annie Mae, do you have one?
About first you had mentioned about them being migrant workers, but them saying you mentioned that they're not busy with that, because I was thinking, well, the apples aren't producing.
Right. I think I want to say I heard,
The other farm chores that they have to do year round.
I want to say I heard they keep about 500 of the 2,500.
This was just one camp, they had 16.
Right. Yeah.
Like the girls, they do something with the apples.
Yeah, I think they moved down to about of the 2,500, maybe 500 during this off season that they kind
I'm so glad and
Yeah.
love to hear that.
They were also exuberant to get the shoes, to get the clothes. That's easy. To where it's like, well, I don't know if I can go work with them if I can't speak the language. Some of these camps that have children, could we go up to Gettysburg and do vacation Bible school for the kids during the day, and then have dinner with mom, dad, and the kids, and everybody of you as a church, as some of our ministries get involved, because it may be that, a Sunday school class says, my group can go this weekend, and then another group can go another weekend. Teenagers, it's going to have to be during the summer. A lot of folks work, so that requires maybe a weekend trip. But there are a lot of different ways that this thing can go really, really well and be a great partnership. Any other thoughts or questions? In the back?
Matt, just a general statement. Through my years of ministry, both, primarily on staff churches, we would constantly say, get involved, show, demonstrate your love.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time, I think, of the most active church, the most opportunities, both locally and beyond, that I've ever seen. It's fantastic to be a part of a church.
Isn't it, though?
That has so many opportunities to minister, even next door to in town to beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, it was great to have the director of the Pennsylvania go, well, because I don't know how I always get nominated as speaker of the group. There are other ministers there. Our church has done, I don't mind it, don't get me wrong. And there are other churches in our association that are doing really well. But there are a lot of eyes at First Baptist Zebulon going, that church right now is going. And there are a lot of opportunities that we can serve. In fact, we've been asked to host our associational meeting this year. And so there's a lot of good things that are happening. And I always get asked the question, well, what are you doing to make all that happen? And I go, I ain't doing a thing. I'm just getting out of God's way. Like, God, go do your thing. I get out your way, and I'm going to help. I'm going to do whatever you tell me as best I can and try not to get in his way. Let the Holy Spirit work and the Holy Spirit do its thing. And that's all that we can do. And as when we pray and as God answers those prayers, it's on whether or not we say yes and move in that direction. However we think it looks for us. Because I still say everything goes back to our slogan, genuinely authentic. We don't have to do it the same way somebody else has done it. What works for us is what we do. And the way it works for us, let's do it that direction because we want it to be real and meaningful. And that's where we go from there.
We got a connection up there that I have never seen anything quite like it. And that's Christian and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to volunteer to take that.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's over 50 miles one way, and most of that was in the dark after night when they should have been home bed with the family and children.
Yep.
And they are totally committed.
Be able to help as much as I can with them. That's a great thing. I know time's running short. Got to get y'all to choir practice. Printers have been down today, so should be back up now. I didn't get to print you guys a prayer list. Some of the same things on the prayer list. Keep Catherine Lance and Clint Lance and their family in your prayers.